Today I want to talk to you about the two things that you should be focusing on if you want to elevate your testosterone levels naturally. In case you don't know who I am, my name's Doug and I've been an online personal trainer and a nutritionist for the last 5 years now. And in that time, I've helped well over 100 men to achieve their health and fitness goals. Okay, let's get straight into it. To improve your testosterone, you want to focus on the two biggest needle movers, sleep and cortisol. But let's be real. We'd all love to be less stressed and we'd all love to get more sleep. So what we really need to do is address how we improve our sleep, quality and quantity, and decrease our cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So let's talk about sleep first, I think, because it leads nicely into the cortisol. First things first with your sleep, what I want you to start thinking about is adopting something called the 3-2-1 rule. This is a rule that I invented for myself and have now passed on to my clients and they have adopted. This rule is very straightforward. It basically states that for 3 hours before you go to bed, you do not eat. For 2 hours before you go to bed, you do not drink. I'm not talking water, alcohol, coffee, any liquids. And for 1 hour before you go to bed, and this is the hardest one, guys, you try to come off all of the screens, the phones, the laptops, the iPads, the TVs, whatever it might be. What this is going to do is three things. By stopping eating, you're going to increase the chances of the fact that your body has near enough finished the digestive process before you go to sleep. Digestion is a metabolic process. That means it elevates your heart rate. Anything that elevates your heart rate is directly contradictory to you resting and sleeping, because to sleep, you need your heart rate to be coming down to a resting level. Of course, if you're drinking water or any other liquid for that matter before bed, there's more of a chance, especially in your 30s and 40s, as I experienced, and I'm 36 now, you start to wake up 2-3 times in the night as your bladder gets more sensitive and smaller. If you stop drinking for 2 hours before you go to bed, and I do this myself, you will find that your wake-ups in the night will drastically decrease. And this coming off of the screens, coming off of social media before an hour before bed is going to reduce that stress level, it's going to reduce your blue light exposure, and it's going to help you with the production of melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So that's the first thing I want you to do. Next thing I want you to think about, guys, is your sleep regularity. So trying to go to bed and waking up roughly within 30 minutes of each other, the same time every single day, 7 days a week. Now, I appreciate that might sound a little bit weird. Like, what if you're having a big Friday night or a big Saturday night with the boys? Well, it's gonna suck a little bit for you, but trust me, in the long term, if you keep to that sleep regularity, it's going to help you. Another one is to keep your alarm away from your bed, so that when your alarm goes off, you have to get out of your bed to turn it off. Once you're out of bed, let's be honest, that's the hardest part. You're far less likely to get back into bed and snooze and go back to sleep. The other things you want to do is think about your sleep environment. You ideally want your room to be as cold as possible, as dark as possible, and as well ventilated as possible. One of the common mistakes that a lot of people make, and I used to make this mistake myself, is they'd sleep with their bedroom doors shut and the windows shut. So effectively, there's no fresh oxygen being able to get into the room. So over time, they're just recycling the carbon dioxide that they're expelling from their bodies. That's not going to be particularly healthy for you. If you keep the doors open, you're at least opening it up to the rest of your house or your apartment, and you're getting more fresh oxygen. And of course, trying to reduce caffeine through the day. What I would advise here is if you are a bit of a caffeine junkie, after lunchtime, keep the coffee, but switch to decaf caffeine. That's going to massively help you. So that's all I can recommend you in a very sort of clear-cut, quick whistle-stop tour of how to improve your sleep, quantity and quality. You do all of those things for 7 days, I guarantee you're going to sleep. And you're going to sleep a lot better. And why is that important? Well, that's important because when we are asleep, our brains and our bodies are coming into harmony, they're resetting. Our hormones are coming back into balance. Your endocrine system, which is responsible for your hormonal health, is coming back into sync. Sleep is also when the vast majority of your human growth hormone, all of these things that help you build big, strong muscles and stuff, is released into the bloodstream. So sleep is a huge needle mover, guys. And I didn't want to just leave that as like, oh, sleep more, because everybody's heard that before. So let's come on to cortisol, because the first thing I know, the reason I started with sleep is if you get on top of your sleep, that's going to do a lot for your cortisol and for your stress. So I think that a lack of control stems from the fact that we've got too many distractions. And what are people distracted by? Well, their phones. The vast majority of people are distracted by their phones, and their phones are also their biggest stressors. And the fact that they're stressing out is because they have no control, because they feel like they've got no time, but the reality is they're just more distracted. So what do we do about that? Very straightforward, guys. I've actually done a whole other video on how to improve your relationship with your social media and your phone, but I'll quickly whistle stop it for you now. Delete the apps that you do not use. Turn off the notifications of the one you keep. Clean up your social. So in terms of who you're following, who you're paying attention to, the content diet that you're consuming. If you need to, mute friends and family and colleagues, because I appreciate you can't always necessarily unfollow them or unsubscribe from them, because then they're going to get offended, and we don't want that. We don't want any awkward conversations here, do we? What you're seeing is so important. Like I say, your content diet, the information you're consuming, it's going to affect you at a deep subconscious level. It's going to affect your mood, your appetite, what you do, what you eat, the interactions you have, absolutely everything. It's so important. So that's the first thing. The next up is your diet. Guys, try and limit the amount of processed food that you're having. We've already talked about caffeine. Also, how much are you eating? Are you consuming too many or too few calories? Because either of those is going to spike your cortisol level, your stress hormone. If you're consuming too many or too few, you're creating change in your body, and your brain hates change. It likes something called homeostasis, which is staying the same. Even if you are unhealthy, by the way. Now, that's not an excuse to stay unhealthy. Obviously, overall, if you are, let's say you're overweight or obese, in the long term, reducing your body fat, reducing your body weight is going to be one of the best things that you can do for your mental health, for your physical health in the long run. So absolutely do that. But just understand the link between cortisol, our stress hormone, and change. Our brain really doesn't like it. The other thing you want to think about is carb timing. So I've done whole other videos on carbs and how great they are. I am certainly not demonizing them and saying to you that you shouldn't have carbs or that they are bad and evil. Not at all. They are actually our body's preferred source of fuel and energy. But if you are finding that you are particularly stressed out, or you just feel like your test levels are low, then you want to think about your carb timing. A lot of people experience carb crashes in the afternoon. If that's you, if you're one of those people, then potentially look at having a lower carb lunch and a higher fat lunch, and then maybe stack your carbs at the end of the day, and then that's potentially going to help you sleep as well, as long as you're eating 3 hours before you go to bed. And last but not least, guys, as well, is water on the diet side of things. Make sure you're staying well hydrated, okay? Water is a little bit like your secondary energy source. It's unbelievably powerful, because ultimately, think about it, it's hydrogen and oxygen, right? Oxygen is needed to help contract our muscles. And I'm not just talking about the biceps or the triceps or anything like that. I'm talking about every single muscle in your body. Water quite literally stops you from slipping into like a lethargic state. It's like a secondary fuel source. Drink more water, stay hydrated. You will literally have more drive and energy, I promise you. And that's ultimately what we want, because more drive and energy is going to get you up. It's going to get you doing more things, and your testosterone levels in the long run are going to go up if you're just out there having purpose, being a man, hunting, doing more things, getting more done. Trust me. And last but not least, guys, of course, it goes without saying, but I'm sure a lot of you are already doing this: exercise, resistance training, compound movements, heavy weight, regularity. I'm not going to bore you with the details, because I'm sure you've heard it all before, and I've done other videos on that as well. The last thing I want you to think about, guys, is a bit of a mindset shift around stress, because I've learned this from other people. I'm very lucky to be surrounded by some very successful people, which helps inspire me to get to their level. And the way I see them thinking about it is this: you're always going to be stressed. More money, more problems, right? Do you really want to be less stressed, or do you just want to have a better level of acceptance of the stress that you've got in your life? Because for me, it always comes back to control. And when you feel stressed or overly stressed, or you start to identify as burnt out, that's when it kind of takes over. That's when you start to lose against the stress. Stress is actually very important and very good for us, right up to the point where it breaks you. But where it breaks you, you get to decide. And a lot of that is decided by your mindset and how you look into it. Stress can be fuel if you see it as that way. But if you see it as it harming you, it will harm you. So I think there's a mindset shift that we need to have towards changing our approach or our attitude to stress. I don't want you to be busy for the sake of being busy. You know, there's these warriors who are like, oh yeah, but I've got like 5,000 emails in my inbox. That's not a good thing. Oh, well, I did 8 hours of calls today. That's not a good thing. Look at me doing all my meetings and commuting 4 hours each day. Like, none of these are good, productive things that are going to help you. Work hard, 100%, but learn to adopt and adapt to your stress levels. I promise you it's going to help you in the long run. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, if you have, leave the video a little thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I will see you tomorrow.